Hello, hello, and welcome back to yet another NFL draft grades video. The final division. We are here. It has taken at least 10 days, probably 11 or 12. But I am glad I underwent this. It is my favorite time. Honestly, the draft, I think it's because of the lack of like there's no college football. There's no NFL games being played, obviously. This is the pinnacle, and it's a merge, right? It's a combination of college football and NFL. It's an amazing time of the year, and I will be wrapping it up this video. I probably still have some other things I could do related to the draft after this, but we are wrapping up the draft grades with this video. And ironically enough, the best and the worst drafts in the entire AFC, in my opinion, took place from AFC East teams. So let's get into it. Thank you for watching as always. Hope you are having a beautiful what day is today? Thursday, actually. I think Thursday. All right. Let's get into it. Starting off with the New England Patriots. Obviously, last year they got their franchise quarterback, Drake May. Their offensive line stunk. The receiving core was very bad at times. The defense wasn't good either. But the Patriots, this is very important. The Patriots invested hundreds of millions of dollars this offseason into improving their defense. They didn't make a whole lot of offensive additions. They brought in guys like Morgan Moses. I think they signed Mac Hollins, but they did not make nearly as many offensive additions through free agency as they did defense. And now I know why, because they invested heavily into the offense in the draft. Let's get right into it. Wow, that's the top three picks right there. Number four, they take Will Campbell. It was the obvious selection. It's been the obvious selection for a long time. I thought at some points, could it be Tedero McMillan or would it be Will Campbell? It turned out it was Will Campbell, and it is what it is. I mean, it's a good selection. I give it an A. I mean, I was always a supporter of Will Campbell at number four, so you're not going to get any pushback from me. I think he will be their starting left tackle, no matter what some people have to say about his arm length or whatever the case may be. I think he's going to be their franchise left tackle, and I think he'll be successful at the NFL level. So I give that an A. It was a great pick at number four. Number 38, TreVeyon Henderson. It's been a lot of discussion. I mean, 90 plus, maybe 95+% of people agree wholeheartedly. Gene T RB1, no doubt about it, right? And you would get the same from me. A lot of discussion about who is RB2 in this draft class, and there's a lot of guys individually, I think, do some things better than Henderson. Like there's a couple backs in this class who are better pass catchers. There's a lot of backs who are bigger and stronger. There's a few backs who are faster. But honestly, in my opinion, TreVeyon Henderson is the most well-rounded running back maybe that I've ever seen. I don't know if that's a stretch or not because he has no weaknesses in his game. He's an amazing pass protector. He's a great receiving threat. He's a little bit small, but I think he plays physically above his size. He's not afraid of contact. He's incredibly fast and athletic. He is like just the perfect running back. So, I mean, to get him at 38, that just screams amazing value to me. And honestly, is he the day one starter for New England? There's no doubt in my mind he's RB just automatically. I like Antonio Gibson, but brother, I look at Henderson and I think, man, he's better all across the board than Gibson. So he's RB2 out the gate. Is he just better than Ramondre Stevenson? Because keep in mind, Stevenson has had some major fumbling issues, right? And I think Mike Vrabel is going to come into the job not really having any, preferences or favorites. Like, I don't think he's going to care that Stevenson's been the guy the last couple of years. I think he's going to come in and say, whoever's the best running back I see in camp is going to be the day one starter. And I don't think Henderson, by the way, has ever fumbled in college. I think that's a stat I saw somewhere, and I think it applies to Henderson. So if that's true, I mean, yet again, just the perfect running back. So I would not be shocked at all if Henderson is RB1 just to start. But next year, without a doubt, I think he's RB1. So the first two picks, in my opinion, the Patriots get their franchise left tackle and their running back for the foreseeable future. What a way to knock it out the park with their first two picks. And listen, when you have number four and number 38, you should get two really good players. But I mean, man, I have literally zero objections to either of these picks. So I mean, that's getting two A's back to back. That's a damn good first two picks for the Patriots right there. Now, number 69, top of the third round, they get Kyle Williams, the wide receiver out of Washington State. Now, listen, he's an inside outside threat. He can play both in the slot and outside. It's a good value pick at number 69. A lot of people had a second round grade on him, and potentially, depending on who you ask, could have been the best wide receiver available here at number 69. I wouldn't argue with that. Now, the problem for me, I view the Patriots wide receiver core in a very similar fashion as the Broncos wide receiving core. They both have an established vet at the top, Stephon Diggs, Courtland Sutton, and then they both got three young wide receivers that I want to see get opportunities. The Broncos have Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Deshaun Bailey. The Patriots have Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas, and Jalen Polk. So with this selection of Kyle Williams, one of those three I just named is going to get kicked to the curb. Douglas, I think, has been there the longest. I think he's been there 3 years. Boutte, 2 years, and I think Polk was a rookie last year. So it's like, I'll do with that what you will, but I don't want to see any of those guys just get their opportunities cut because I think they all can play well, except for Polk. I mean, we know for a fact that based off what they did last year, that Boutte and Demario Douglas belong in the league. Polk had a really bad rookie year, but I don't want to see a second round pick get his career snatched away because of a bad rookie season. By the way, on a bad team overall. So from a personal aspect, that's what I don't love about this pick. But just based off the things I mentioned earlier, it is an objectively good pick, and their receiver room is not very strong. So you could see a situation where Kyle Williams either is just thrown into the mix of guys I just named, or he comes out clearly better than the rest. He's wide receiver two, and those other three guys I just named compete for a wide receiver three position. And it's also interesting because I look at Kyle Williams as a potential slot receiver. I see Stephon Diggs as a guy who can move all around, but I think primarily makes his best moves out of the slot. I see Demario Douglas also as a slot guy. So I think the Patriots are kind of lacking in outside receivers. So that's where I see a guy like Kayshon Boutte maybe making the most of his money, if you will, as their primary outside guy. So a lot of factors to this pick, but not a lot of negatives. I give it an A minus, good value, position of need, good player. So first three picks, 3 for 3 so far. But their fourth was their best, in my opinion. The Patriots' offensive line has been hideous, and they get the best pure center in the draft at number 95. It's just amazing value. I mean, are you kidding me? Day one start, potentially. They signed Garrett Bradbury in free agency. Vikings fans will tell you he is terrible. Okay, so I'm not too high on that signing, if you will. It was an upgrade over what they had last year. However, I would not be shocked if Jared Wilson, sorry, center is a difficult position, right? It's like you have to know a lot about the offense as well. But I think Bradbury's experience might lend him to being the starter early on. But what I like about this is it pretty much guarantees it sets a very high floor for the Patriots on the level of play you have at the center position. I think obviously next season and forever long after that, Jared Wilson's going to be your starter at center. But for the meantime, you might have Bradbury opening up the season. But if his play drops off a cliff, guess what? Just put in Jared Wilson at the center position, and you'll be very happy with that. So, by the way, keep in mind what this means. This means the Patriots potentially just got their franchise left tackle and center in the same draft, not to mention TreVeyon Henderson. So, I mean, you are building the foundation of what Drake May is going to have around him in his career in the same draft class. The Patriots really are doing something special right here. So I think this was their best pick and also their steal of the draft at number 95. Amazing. Possibly the best first four picks we've seen so far. Next up, Craig Woodson at 106 is where the streak will end, if you will. I just didn't see safety as a need for the Patriots. These are all other guys that I think would have been available at also, by the way, would have been positions of need. Danny Stutzman, Cody Simon, Jack Sawyer, Kyle Kennard. All four of those guys in the front seven, I think would have just done like been more important than Craig Woodson. I don't think he's a bad player or anything like that. I just don't think him at 106 makes sense for the Patriots. So I'm going to give that a C. It was their worst pick, in my opinion. Joshua Foreman, number 137. They get back on the right track very quickly here. Great value here. He was ranked at number 76 on the ESPN big board. So to get him at 137, amazing value. Inside out potential. I think he could play some as a pure D end, if you will, but also could kick back inside to his natural position of defensive tackle. Also, day one, DT3 for the Patriots. I mean, I love this pick. It's an A minus for me. Great value. Like it's just they hop right back in the swing of things. They invested heavily into their front seven via free agency, but you still need to bolster that depth, if you will, with future starters. And they did this back-to-back picks because number 146, Braden Swinson, edge out of LSU. I don't know how this guy fell all the way to 146. He was ranked number 82 on the ESPN big board. So back-to-back picks, you get guys 60 plus spots like ahead of where their value is. Or I should say, like you just steal back-to-back picks nearly 2 rounds behind where they were ranked. So back-to-back steals here by the Patriots. If they didn't take Jared Wilson, either of these guys could have been their potential steal of the draft. So we have 6 A- or better selections by the Patriots with their first uh sorry, 6 A- or better selections with their first 7 picks. That is spectacular. I mean, they must have been doing jumping jacks during the draft after they got these guys. Like, I don't understand. So yeah, Braden Swinson, good depth, great value. Edge rusher, I think, was a position of need even after getting a guy like Harold Landry in free agency. So it's like, man, what a job the Patriots did here. They don't even need any picks after this. This top 7 is elite, but they still had some other picks. Let's see how they decide to spend those. Andres Borregales, they drafted a kicker, which I think was necessary. So I gave it a. I usually just give all special teams picks a C because I mean it's a special teamer. But I think getting the best kicker when you need a kicker, I do think that is pretty valuable. So I did give that a B minus. The rest of these picks, I don't think they'll make the roster. A tackle at 220, a cornerback with the very last pick in the draft, but Julian Ashby, a long snapper at 251. I do think he'll make the roster, but I just didn't grade the pick. Like it's just, it is what it is. So I didn't grade their last 3 picks, but I mean their first 7 were so outstanding. It just overweighs that. Let's take a look here at overall here. That's a really high grade. One of the highest grades I've seen so far. Absolutely had to round that up to an A minus. And their first 4 picks, outstanding. All offensive minded, by the way. I love the fact that their first 4 picks were all aimed at their offense. Like I mentioned earlier, they invested heavily in the defense through free agency. So their first 4 picks, you could get potentially 4 franchise key pieces of this offense for Drake May moving forward with your first 4 picks. This really could be a legendary draft for the Patriots. Looking back in hindsight, um, 2 great steals on that defensive line, and I believe they had the most A- or higher picks of any team in the league. So a lot to be happy with as a Patriots fan. It was outstanding. Like, man, really, and I haven't seen them getting a lot of hype. I think the Giants and the Seahawks, from just what I've seen, have like been getting a lot of talk as having a really good draft. I haven't seen a lot of hype for the Patriots, which is interesting because it's like they didn't just have 4 or 5 picks either. They had 6 like home run type selections, and I just haven't seen them getting as much attention as I think they should. So they do on this channel. We cover the ones who need the attention. Next up, we got the Jets. Obviously, just complete overhaul. The Jets last season were a disaster. Aaron Rodgers is now out the door. They got rid of whoever the hell the head coach was. Well, they got rid of Robert Saleh when it really wasn't his fault, but they bring in a new head coach, Aaron Glenn. And let's see if they brought in Justin Fields to play quarterback. So let's see what they do here. I like the direction they went actually, especially with their first 2 picks. So they make 2 picks to hopefully make the offense better for Justin Fields moving forward. Armand Membu, tackle out of Missouri. This was towards the end, like the last month before the draft. This was like the consensus pick at number 7. Like I mentioned earlier, the top 10 or the top 9, if you will, of this draft, or top 8 actually, played out like picture perfect. Like every player at the position was like exactly what we thought it was going to be. So the Jets at 7 take the obvious player. Armand Membu looks like he's going to be a day 1 starter at right tackle, which is really good, especially considering the fact that they got Olu Fashanu last year out of Penn State in the top 10. So, I mean, back-to-back drafts in the top 10, you potentially get your franchise tackles. You got to be really happy with that if you're a Jets fan. So I give that an A. It was their best pick, in my opinion. It was the obvious pick, but sometimes, most times, I think the obvious pick, the consensus pick, is for reasons because it makes the most sense. So I like that a lot for the Jets. Gave that an A. Number 42, you take Mason Taylor. Now, definitely a position of need. Tight end has just not been relevant for the Jets since I don't even know how long. Day 1 starter. On top of that, I do think you lost what's his name, Jack Conklin. I think you just plug and play Mason Taylor right away. Good value as well. And the only problem for me is that there were other players available, notably cornerback, that I think the Jets could have used. I mean, Will Johnson, for example, Benjamin Morrison, guys like that. They lost DJ Reed, so I do think you need another boundary cornerback, but they addressed that later on. So number 73, Azariah Thomas, it's a steal. It was their biggest steal of the draft, in my opinion. It's just good value, position of need. The only pushback I would offer is Siobhan Revel being available. I mean, I do think I personally had Siobhan Revel above Azariah Thomas, but here's the thing: due to the fact that like all of the cornerbacks fell in the draft, to get Azariah Thomas at 73, it's not like shocking to me, but I do think potentially we're looking at a guy. I mean, all he has to do is beat out Brandon Stevens, right? And he is their starting boundary cornerback opposite to Sauce Gardner. Now, for that reason, he is going to get tested a lot in the NFL level or at the NFL level. So if he doesn't have it, getting all those targets thrown his way will break him. But if he is the guy, then he could step up and make a lot of plays as a result. So a lot of spotlight when you're the guy opposite to like an all pro level player. Like for example, the Broncos, Riley Moss gets by a wide margin. Riley Moss gets the most targets of the Broncos secondary because he's the boundary cornerback opposite to Pat Surtain. So that's just the way it works when you play with a great guy next to you. So, but their first three picks, I love all of them. I mean, you can make strong cases that they were even higher than the grades that I gave them. So, yeah, great first three picks by the Jets. And Arian Smith at 110, kind of similar to the Dante Thornton pick by the Raiders, but I think Thornton has more physical attributes and less red flags than Arian Smith. Arian Smith has a hands problem, has some bricks for hands based off his last season, really his whole career at Georgia. It is definitely a reach at number 110. Wide receiver is a major need for them, however. There were better wide receivers on the board here at 110. For me, he would have been wide receiver 4 or 5. Actually, no. I think he will be there, wide receiver 4 or 5, just day one as in terms of the depth chart is looking. So I think he could play a big impact for them, similar to Dante Thornton on the Raiders. Let me just quickly take a look at some other receivers who I think just don't have nearly the amount. And by the way, Arian Smith, he's always been a guy where it's like he's not lacking in speed, size, physicality, anything like that. It is strictly can he catch the ball. And for me, drop issues as a wide receiver, drop issues is kind of just like a stay away because it's like I don't understand how that gets better over time. It's because it's a mental thing, right? And I don't know. I would be very concerned in drafting a guy with some drop issues, especially when guys like, for example, Jalen Lane, Jalen Royals, Alec Alexander, Torrey Horton, all those guys available, and you draft a guy with some pretty big red flags, two of them on his hands. So, yeah, I think it was their worst pick, but the potential is there. So if he does fix it, then you've got potentially a really good deep threat moving forward. So I don't know. Very boom or bust type potential pick with that one. Next up, Malachi Moore at number 130. Safety out of Alabama. It's position of need. It's a good value pick. It's time I mentioned this. The Jets draft this draft they picked exclusively big name guys. Like if you were a casual follower of the draft and you were a big college football guy, you would recognize everything, or you would recognize all seven of their picks, and you can tell me about all of them. They had 7 or 6 picks. 6 picks. 7. No. Yeah, you would recognize all seven of their picks and you could tell me about all of them. So I mean, they drafted big names exclusively here. And I mean that could work out. They didn't have really any terrible picks here. So Malachi Moore at 130. Safety definitely is an issue. I think they brought in Andre Cisco, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a mistake. Did they lose anybody? They've never really had a great safety, at least since Jamal Adams, I would say. So safety definitely a need. I think Malachi Moore at 130 is good value. So I gave that one a B plus. Francisco Muigoa, linebacker out of Miami. Linebacker, they lost CJ Mosley. I don't know if they're going to bring him back or not. Or did he sign somewhere else? I think he's still a free agent. But yeah, I think linebacker depth certainly is an issue for them. So Francisco Muigoa, good player. I gave that one a B. And then Tyler Barron, edge out of Miami, B plus. I like his value here at 170. Thought he would have gone maybe a round or two higher. And yeah, I think edge certainly the depth of that position is something you want to look at. So I mean, good picks here on all their day three selections, B plus B, and then another B plus. Looking overall, no bad picks for the Jets. They covered all their areas of concern. I think they made the offense a little bit more explosive for Justin Fields potentially, and they made several selections on their defense, so I think could turn in two valuable rotation guys or even starters. So 6.07, very good draft by the New York Jets. Moving on to the Miami Dolphins. Well, Tua went down last year to, I think, multiple. Maybe it was just one. He had concussion problems last year. So Tua, I mean, I could make a whole video about what I think of the Tua situation. I think he should retire. To be quite honest with you, I think his career will not last the next 2 years, certainly. So with that in mind, I mean, you could make the case the Dolphins just have to blow it up from the like all the way. So I'm not sure what the Dolphins should do necessarily. Let's see what they just decide to go with. Number 13, Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan. Now, look, I am not as high on Kenneth Grant as other people. I certainly don't think 13 is the value spot for him. I think it is a slight reach here. However, you can make a strong case. You know, they lost Christian Wilkins the previous offseason to the Raiders. Maybe they're just still looking for his replacement. So I do think he'll be a day one starter. I don't see the necessarily the pass rush with him as I do with some other guys like Mason Graham or Walter Nolan. But plug and play starter at a position of need. I'm not going to fault them too much for that. But I think they have so many holes. I mean, I think offensive line right here would have been valuable. I think cornerback certainly. Kenneth Grant, would I have ordered defensive tackle at the top of their list? No, not personally, especially considering the fact they could have a wide receiver issue with Tyreek Hill potentially leaving. So I don't know. I gave it a B. I'm not too high on that selection. Um, then number 37, Jonas Savaiinaea. I gave this an A. I think it was their best pick of the draft overall. Offensive line was a major need for them. I do think he'll be an instant starter at guard. And you could have gone cornerback again here. I mean, all the top guys were available here besides Jahdae Barron pretty much. So it just comes down to with your first two picks, you had to draft offensive line. So I'm not going to fault them for getting a day one starter at 37. But I guess, the Kenneth Grant selection, you know, like for example, I think if they would have drafted Gray Zabel at 13 and Will Johnson at 37, they would have just been much better off. Like their fans would be much happier, for example. But they would Kenneth Grant and Savaiinaea, not bad by any stretch of the word. Number 143, they draft Jordan Phillips. And let me make sure for a fact I understand that Shedeur was available here. I think he was 150 something. As long as this was a fourth round pick, then that means Shedeur was available. 1 second. 143. What do you know? It was the pick before Shedeur Sanders. So that's obviously going to get heavily criticized. I think my stance on this is pretty clear. I think the Dolphins should have drafted Shedeur at this spot just because of Tua's injury history. And also, I think Shedeur in the Dolphins system is actually a really good fit for him just based off his play style. And, the Dolphins are a very quarterback friendly offense. So I think that would have been a good fit. But I mean, they double dip at defensive tackle, which I just don't understand here. On top of that, it's a reach. I don't think Jordan Phillips was mocked to go anywhere close to this high, and they just desperately need secondary. Once they move on from Jalen Ramsey, their secondary is going to be awful. Keep in mind they also lost Javon Holland to Framesy, so the Dolphins are about to lose their two best DBs, and you don't address the secondary at all with your first three picks. That's just a lapse of judgment in my opinion. I do not understand the Jordan Phillips pick at all. So normally this would be their worst pick of the draft. It was a bad pick overall, but they make a worse selection than this down the road, in my opinion. Now, number 150, they draft Jason Marshall. Obviously, like I just said, cornerback is a major need. Marshall's a guy with a lot of potential, according to some people. He is a potential starter. I mean, just depending on when you look at the roster once Jalen Ramsey leaves, like, there's not a lot of options at cornerback. Apparently, he dealt with some injury concerns last year at Florida, so that kind of tanked his draft stock, if you will. So he might be better than even his draft selection says, but that's to be determined. I give it a B plus just because you draft a guy with high potential at a position of need. Next up, Dante Trader, safety, versatile defensive back out of Maryland. Again, a major reach on both of the Maryland players. And also, Dolphins fans, they really wanted Jalen Reed at this spot, which, I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. Jalen Reed was ranked much, much higher than Dante Trader, according to ESPN, like several rounds apart. So, I mean, that's a miss in my opinion. So I gave it a C. And then Ollie Gordon at 179. you have Devon Achane. He's your guy. He is a guy with the potential through the roof, ridiculous speed. He's the guy at running back. You spent a third round. By the way, you unnecessarily spent a third round pick on Jalen Wright last season at the running back position. He's your RB2. Why on earth are you drafting another running back here? If you love running back so much, Just sign one in free agency or just bring in an undrafted free agent. I don't understand wasting a draft pick on a potential RB3 or maybe even RB4. It's just I hate this pick. I don't get it. Dolphins fans hated this pick. They knew it was going to happen. Like they just absolutely knew they were going to draft an unnecessary running back at some point, and here it was. Ollie Gordon. I just don't get it. I don't understand it whatsoever. I gave it a D. Quinn Ewers at 231. I give it a B plus just because it is a major steal. Like nobody would have thought you could get Quinn Ewers in the seventh round. So for that reason, I think it is just a good pick. And also, of all the spots that Quinn Ewers could go to, I mean, potentially playing for the Dolphins, I think it does fit well for him. So would I have taken Shedeur over Jason Marshall at 150? Yes. Would that have been a better? Not Jason Marshall. Would I have taken Shedeur over Jordan Phillips at 143? Yes. Would it have been a better decision? Yes. Would it have been an upgrade over Quinn Ewers? Yes. But getting Quinn Ewers at 231 is still objectively a good pick, even though I would have went a different direction overall. So I think that was their steal of the draft, and it was a B plus pick in my opinion. Zeke Biggers at 253. Why on earth are we triple dipping at defensive tackle? I don't think he's going to make the roster. I did not grade the pick. Dolphins, worst draft in the AFC. I mean, I I don't think you can even argue with the Jordan Phillips not taking Shedeur and taking a RB3 in Ollie Gordon. I don't think you can argue. I think those are two objectively bad decisions. Dante Trader doesn't move the needle for me whatsoever. They did not get anything in Zeke Biggers. I mean, I guess if you really love the Kenneth Grant pick, then that could change things. But I think I was pretty fair in grading Savanea an A. I think Jason Marshall a B plus, pretty generous. I just, yeah, I don't see the way that like there's no way that you could like spin this as being a good draft. It's either very bad or average at best. So I just, yeah, I don't love the Dolphins draft by any stretch of the imagination. Moving on to the Bills, perennial playoff contender, perennial victim to the Kansas City Chiefs. They can never get over the hump. Does this draft move the needle? That's all their only goal is beating the Chiefs, right? That's all they are after at this point. So let's see what they have to do in the draft. I think defense certainly is the need. They don't have a wide receiver one either, but I think defense certainly just getting more guys who can make plays on defense is the overall goal for the Bills. Let's see how they address that here. First three picks, all defense, all big name guys, by the way. Maxwell Harrison at number 30. Now, in my opinion, there was just so many cornerbacks that were better than Maxwell Harrison. In my opinion, he was not being talked about at all as a first round guy until he ran the fastest 40. Speed is absolutely important for a cornerback, but it does not put you ahead of guys like Will Johnson, Trey Amos, Benjamin Morrison, Siobhan Revel, potentially, Azariah Thomas, guys like that. It's just Maxwell Harrison at 30 is a reach for me. He's just not the best quarterback available by any stretch of the imagination. But if the Bills like him, if they trust him, then I'm going to take their word for it necessarily. So I'm going to give it a B, similar to the Kenneth Grant selection. I don't love it, but I do think, you can make a strong argument. I mean, it's just, do you think he's better than all the other cornerbacks available? According to the Bills, he was the second best cornerback in this class. I mean, they maybe even would have taken him over Jahdae Barron. Who knows? But, you know, I disagree, but I give it a B because it is still a position of need. And he's still a guy that, even if though he wasn't that high on my board, he would have been, a second round grade for me. TJ Sanders at 41. Position of need, certainly. Defensive tackle. A lot of the other guys had gone off the board at this point. So good value, potential starter on top of that. My problem, though, is you still could have gotten Will Johnson or Mike Green with this spot. So, would I have taken TJ Sanders over either of those guys? Of course not. They were both top 11 overall players on my big board. So that's a miss, in my opinion. But you get a good player at a good spot. So I give that pick a B plus. Now, number 72. This was their best pick and their steal of the draft, in my opinion. Landon Jackson. He was in my top 50. Might even have been in my top 40. Actually, he has some ridiculous physical traits. I think he's like 6'7" as well. So I truly see some all-pro potential when I look at Landon Jackson. On top of that, you consider the fact that edge is a position of need for them. I love the pick. Love the pick by every stretch of the imagination. And when you're looking at guys who could potentially play an impact in the Chiefs, like against that's their whole thing, right? I see all three of these guys as potential Pro Bowl level difference makers on their defense. So I like the theme of their draft here with their first three picks. Next, also, by the way, quickly allow me to mention the fact they did trade up for TJ Sanders. That does take down the draft grade, in my opinion. The fact that you moved up to get a guy that wasn't Will Johnson or Mike Green, I have a bit of an issue with that, but that's neither here nor there. Next up, Dion Walker at number 109. Here's a guy who just like fell down the draft as the process continued. At some points, he was considered a first round pick, falls all the way to 109. So I think it's really good value and also a smart double up, in my opinion, to get multiple guys at the defensive tackle position. So I gave this pick a B. Next up, Jordan Hancock, versatile defensive back out of Ohio State. Good value selection. Also brings you a lot on special teams from what I've heard. So back to back good depth selections on the defensive side of the ball. They finally go offense, but I don't know why you would draft a tight end when you still have Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. So potential tight end 3, it is a good value selection. I mean, he was graded like a round or two higher according to ESPN, sorry, but not a position of need certainly. So I think this was their worst selection. I would have liked to see you go a wide receiver at 173 just because no guy has kind of established himself as a just a far and away the best on the team. Let me give you a wide receiver who I would have taken over Jackson Hawes right here quickly. Um, Ricky White, I believe Torrey Horton was also available. Let me actually do it like this 1 second. 173. So this would have been a 5th round pick, right? Yeah, Jackson Hawes. So 6th to 7th round wide receivers that I would have gone with. LeJontay Wester, Tez Johnson, Ricky White, all those guys I would have gone with over Jackson Hawes right here, in my opinion. Next up, Dorian Strong, 177. Really good value here. Yet again, I do agree with the double dip. 2 cornerbacks, 2 defensive tackles, certainly a position of need. I like the pick. It's just a B plus in my opinion. Good player, great value, position of need. B plus. Next up, Chase Lund, offensive tackle out of UConn. He is a good value selection here at 206. Think he provides solid depth. I also do think he will make the rosters. So that's all you're really looking for in the 200s. I gave that a B. And then Caden Prather, wide receiver out of Maryland. Too late to address wide receiver, in my opinion. I do not think he will make the roster. I did not grade that pick. So take a look overall here. We have 6 strong defensive picks. That was the theme of the draft heavily for them. They didn't really do anything to address the offense, but I mean, the offense was great last season. So you can make an argument they didn't need to. And of course, no help at the wide receiver position, which was their only need that I think they failed to address. That is it. That is it. That was the last pick that was graded. Here is the division, how it looks overall. I think Patriots, certainly you can make a case, one of, if not the best drafts in the NFL. Jets also with a strong draft. Bills with they accomplished their goals. They strengthened their defense, left their offense out to dry, though. And the Dolphins with a very, very bad draft. Here's some comparisons, by the way. Here's the AFC North. Here's the AFC South. Here is the AFC West. So the Patriots are the Patriots are the highest, and the Dolphins are the lowest. I'll put all the NFC together whenever I make my next video. What is my next video? I have no idea. I have some ideas, so I just lied to you. But I don't know what exactly the next direction is. There's let me see. Do I give a little teaser here, if you will? Is it a lowlights video? I think it might be, but it's either going to be a Sporcle quiz trying to name every draft pick, or it's going to be some Tyler Shough lowlights. Then I think I'm going to make a video specifically about the Shedeur Sanders situation, just because I haven't really talked about that entirely. I talked about it a lot during the Browns portion of this draft grades, but I think I'll make a whole video just giving my thoughts about it. So, yeah, man, thank you for watching. We are done with the draft grades officially. I'll make a whole playlist and put all these videos in that playlist. So, yeah, man, I had a fun time. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.